Hello everyone, welcome to another GT Sport Daily Race C race strategy guide. It's week number 8 of 2021 and we have a very nice combination as we are taking Group 2 machinery to the Red Bull Ring. So let's take a look at the detailed settings for this one. Now if you've looked this up on Kudos Prime, it's got this race marked up as race B. That's definitely a mistake, this definitely will be race C. We've got 13 laps to get round, we've got fuel consumption at ×2, tyre wear pretty high at ×10, and thankfully, as is quite often the case these days, thankfully PDs do seem to be listening, we have a selection of tyres. In this case it is the medium and the hard tyres, so at the very least those hard tyres are going to be mandatory. So the Red Bull Ring in Austria is the track we're visiting this week, set in the Styrian Mountains I believe. It used to be called the A1 Ring. Pretty good track, not a whole lot of corners, sort of good balance of long straights, tight corners with the hairpin at turn number 3 and some tricky track limits to boot, which we'll take a look at a little bit later on in the video. So we are visiting the Red Bull Ring in the Group 2 cars, and the car we have chosen to do the testing in is the 2016 Lexus. Now this is my favourite out of the 2016 Group 2 cars, but another reason for choosing this car is that a subscriber of mine, Larry420 Stevens, very kindly did a livery for this car. You can see it on the sort of the screenshot at the beginning of the video. I think it's based on one of the DTM cars from fairly recent years. It does look fantastic. I will try and leave a link to that livery in the description if I can work out how to do it. But thank you very much to Stevo for the livery. I do think it looks fantastic on the car, and it's definitely going to be seeing some action over the course of this week. And one other thing I would like to mention is that I do think we need to give Polyphony Digital some credit for the recent car and track combinations. It does feel to me a little bit like they are listening to the community. Daily Race C tends to have a lot of strategy in it at the moment with a mix of tyres. We're getting some original combinations. This is the first time I can remember taking the Group 2 cars to Austria, certainly, or the Red Bull Ring, sorry, certainly in Daily Race C. And then you look back at last week where we had the rally cars around Sardinia. You know, I do like to see them mixing things up. So credit where credit's due, but that's enough of the thanks. This isn't an Oscar speech at the end of the day. This is a strategy guide, and the first strategy we're going to look at is the one-stop strategy. The sort of traditional strategy you think of when you kind of look at the settings is to test the one-stop. In this case we are starting on the medium tyres, then we will move on to the hard tyres when we think we have reached the optimal point. Medium tyres at 10 times tyre wear, my kind of initial predictions would maybe last at about lap 7 or 8. And let's move forward through the video and see how long these mediums are going to last. So we are going to transition here to the sort of second sector point at lap number 8, and we're only 4 tenths down on our best lap. Now I was considering pitting at the end of this lap, but given we're only 4 tenths down, I thought we're going to do another 1 minute 22 here. I think we shall push on for another lap. But it's going to the second to last corner here, the back end steps out, we sort of stuff for a little bit of understeer as well, and the car starts to get a little bit squirmly through these corners. And I don't know if we pick a penalty up there, do we? We just managed to keep it on the track and avoid a penalty, but we've done a 1 minute 23.3, and I know that I could have done a quicker lap than that on the hard tyres. So I think maybe that I left a lap a little bit too long, but we are going to pit at the end of lap number 9 here. We'll take on a fresh set of hard tyres and we'll get a decent comparison of how those lap times are looking. Let's just take a look at the pit loss and the fuel as well. Now this is one of these funny tracks where if you reduce the car field, the pit time changes. So this pit stop here is actually around about 1 second shorter in duration than it will be when you're racing in sport mode on for Daily Race C. So we will take that into compensation. We also then do make the full part of taking on a little bit of fuel as well, or certainly going through the animation. So the stop duration is actually 4.9 seconds and the pit time is also around about 19 seconds. So we're going to have to compensate for this. It was a pretty solid run on the one stop here. I wasn't really too keen to do another one, but we will compensate for all that, sort it out at the end of the video. Don't worry, I have done all the maths, and we shall get an accurate comparison time to the 2-stop and the no-stop strategy. Now, I have mentioned there that you do want to be downshifting on pit exit. When you come out the pits, the car bogs down in second gear, you want to be changing it down into first gear. I didn't actually do it in that instance, but I will sort of show you me doing it in a pit stop a little bit later in the video. But back to this one stop strategy. We're on the hard tyres here. You can see we're doing 1 minute 22.7, 1 minute 22.8. I think we finished with a 1 minute 22.8 or 9 as well. So going through there to lap number 8 through to lap number 9 probably was just a lap too long. And it looks to me like maybe lap number 8 might be the optimal time to pit from medium tyres onto the hard tyres. But in saying that, I do think there's probably a little bit of a window there as well. So you're not going to be shoeboxed into doing just one particular lap. I don't think. There is a little bit of strategy here. You can go for an undercut or even an overcut of some sort as well. So the finishing time for this one, once we have calculated the mess up in the fuel and also that additional second added on for the pit stop, was actually 18 minutes 10.7. So 18 minutes 10.7 will be the benchmark as we move on to the two-stop strategy. So the two-stop strategy, we're just going to go medium, medium, hard. We're going to do 2 stints of 6 laps on the medium tyres. So here we are pitting at the end of lap number 6. And then we'll just do a single solitary lap on the hard tyres at the end. So again, this pit stop here in terms of the pit time, not the actual stop duration. The stop duration will be 4.9 seconds. The pit time will be 19 seconds and not 18 seconds like this. But just watch me downshift into first gear here, just so you get a little slight bit of better acceleration up the hill. If you leave it in second gear, which the car will leave you in as you exit the pits, you will bog down. So maybe practice that in the time trial part as well. You can do sort of simulation pit stops in the time trial or in qualifying. It is definitely worth doing because it will cost you all the way up into turn number 3, and you could well be saving yourself a couple of tenths, which could make the difference as you get into that hairpin and whether you lose a position or not. So this is the end of the two-stop run here. We've made that sort of transition. A little bit of a sneaky one, you might not have noticed as we come into the hairpin. We've done our second stint there. Now we've not went dramatically quicker on the second stint on the medium tyres as compared to the first stint. And that's really just down to the fact that you've not burnt a massive amount of fuel off compared to the first stint. You're maybe around about 20 to 25 kilograms lighter. Maybe makes the car around about 4 to 5 tenths of a second a lot quicker. And not a dramatic difference, so even from that I was pretty sure here that the two stop was going to be struggling to match the one stop. But as we come into the last corner here, we're able to come across the finish line and we'll be able to get a comparison. So 18 minutes 10.7 is the time to beat. We do need to add 2 seconds onto this time as well, and that's going to be an 18 minutes 14.0. So we have to add a second on per pit stop, just remember that. So 18 minutes 14.0 against a 10.7. By my calculations, that's 3.3 seconds, which is quite a bit of a margin. Now before we go on to look at all the data as we normally do, let's just talk about Red Bull's annoying track limits. So a lot of the track at Red Bull has got these red and white curbs with a green section behind them. Now if you go all 4 wheels beyond the red and white curbs, at certain parts of the track you will pick up half second and 1 second penalties. Now it's very easy to do, particularly the last 2 corners here. So we've gone well wide here, and we'll do the same again into the last corner. Obviously we're doing it deliberately here. It can be a little bit funny at times. Sometimes you get a penalty, sometimes you don't. On that occasion we never quite got as much of a penalty there as I expected to. We're then going to really breach the track limits here in turn number 1. Fully expected to get a penalty, but we don't. So the track limits can be pretty funny at Red Bull. It does actually calculate whether you gain an advantage at times. I think that's a little bit of an unknown fact. So sometimes you'll see people breach the track limits and not get a penalty, and that is the reason, is that probably the game has calculated that they've not gained a time advantage. But that's maybe a case for another video in the future. We'll maybe look at track limits and how you can kind of avoid some track limit penalties. For now, let's get back to the strategy. We've got all the data up on the screen. Let's talk about each of the strategies, the pros and cons, and how I think each of them may well work out. So between the one stop and the two stop strategy, the one stop strategy is clearly quicker. It's around about 3.3 seconds, which is quite a lot of time. You just cannot make up that second pit stop loss with the fresh mediums, and therefore the one stop strategy is just that 3.3 seconds quicker. Now, is the two stop strategy redundant? I don't think it's completely redundant. I could see circumstances where you may try to make something work. If you find yourself circulating maybe 1.52 seconds slower than you optimally could, it may be worth diving into the pits early, putting on a second set of medium tyres and trying to do some kind of undercut. So I could see a circumstance where that's going to work, but I think ultimately 99% of people are going to be doing the one-stop strategy. Now if you're starting towards the back of the grid, it'd probably be better to start on the hard tyres, even in the mid-pack. Just doing maybe 2-3 laps on the hard tyres, burning off a bit of fuel, then firing on a set of mediums for maybe 10-11 laps. I could see the tyres being capable of doing that once you've got a little bit of that fuel burned off. Now we did also test the no-stop strategy. It's unlikely to be available, very 99% certain that they'll make both the medium and the hard tyres mandatory, ultimately ruling the no-stop strategy out. But if it is available, it is actually quite competitive, only coming in 0.8 slower than the one-stop. Certainly if it's an option, do check the rules before you go in, then it is maybe an option from the back of the grid. But ultimately, yeah, this is going to be a one-stop strategy for 99% of the time. The two-stop strategy is maybe something you kind of throw the dice and see if you can make it work. But we've got a bit of a pit window as well, which is quite good. I think the kind of overlap between the medium and the hard tyres is probably 3 to 4 laps, so not everybody's going to be kind of shooed into pitting at the same time. Anyway, that is the strategy, that's my thoughts on that. Let's move on to a little bit of a lap guide. We're in 2016 Lexus, we're approaching turn number 1, we're looking for the 100 metre board. Now, it's a between kind of second and third gear into turn number 1. Obviously be careful of the track limits on the exit. Just try to look after the tyres. Then, or the tyres are a little bit fresher, then the third gear does work into turn number 1. Again, you're looking for the 100 metre board, maybe braking about 5 to 7 metres before the 100 metre board. Down into first gear for the turn 3 hairpin. Get the car nice and straight on the power. And get another long straight here down to the downhill turn number 4. Again, the 100 metre board is your reference, probably braking just a little bit before that as well. Get the car over slowed, make sure you kind of try and clip this apex before you get on the power. Very easy to get on the power too early and just understeer off into the gravel. And then you've got the 50 metre board as your reference here, maybe braking just before the 50 metre board. Try and hug that apex there. Using all the curb on the exit. For this left hand turn here, you actually turn the car in a little bit early and then kind of hope it understeers just a little bit. Use all the curb on the exit. Now we're coming down to the last 2 corners where track limits are pivotal. So the 50 metre board on the left hand side there is your reference. Drop a couple of gears, try and catch that curb on the exit, don't run too wide, and then again you almost turn in a little bit early into the last turn and let the understeer carry the car to use all the width of the track. But that is a lap of the Red Bull ring. Nearly said the A1 ring there, that just showed my age. But that's a lap of the Red Bull ring in the 2016 Lexus. I'm really looking forward to this race, I must say. I think going from the testing, I think this is a really good combination. The Group 2 cars really do suit this track, so I think we're in for some exciting stuff. And we've got strategy, so that's always good as well. All that's left to say is please do hit that like button, please do hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Give me a shout out in the lobby if you see me. Look out for some live streams over the course of the week and hopefully I'll see you for them. But until then, goodbye.